Cantonese the hardest language? That's a great question. Polyglots and language experts all around the world seem to agree that yes, Cantonese is in fact a very hard language to learn. But today I'm going to give you all the reasons why it's so hard to learn. So for those of you who don't know, Cantonese is a Chinese language spoken by around 70 million people. And the US State Department has classified it as a Category 4 language, which just means it's really freaking hard to learn. Take that, Mandarin! Just kidding, Mandarin's actually also a Category 4 language. But to be honest, the fact that Duolingo is having such a hard time completing their Cantonese course, I think it's safe to say that even they're having some trouble with it. But all joking aside, today I'm gonna tell you all the reasons I think Cantonese is the hardest language to learn. So the first reason Cantonese is so hard to learn is tones. For example, C, 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 all mean different things. If you haven't learned a tonal language before, it's a little tricky to wrap your head around. Just ask my husband Jared, who's been learning Cantonese for the last 2 years.
Matokin.
No.
Matokin. Matokin. Matokin.
You may have heard that Mandarin has 4 tones. Well, depending on how you count them, Cantonese has something between 6 and 9 tones. And just when you think you've got them all figured out, you'll find out that tones can actually change sometimes. For example, you'd say yan with a falling tone, but no yan with a rising tone. And dan with a rising tone, but dan go with a low flat tone. Even I have trouble with this sometimes, and I grew up speaking it. So number 2 on the list of why Cantonese is so hard to learn is writing. Unlike English with its 26 letters, you literally need to know thousands of characters in order to read Chinese at an adult level. Imagine if you had to learn a different symbol for every English word you know. And on top of that, there's a specific order you have to write them in. And then some characters look super similar but actually mean completely different things. And to make things even more confusing, different countries use 2 different sets of characters, which sometimes can look completely different. This is also a challenge for Mandarin learners, but they don't have to deal with the next problem, which is diglossia. It's basically a fancy way of saying that we don't read and write the way we speak. Basically, everything is written in standard Chinese, which is based on Mandarin. We're talking songs, magazines, newspapers, what have you. But no one really talks that way. Some of the best advice for learning a language is to watch TV shows with subtitles and to listen to music. But the subs in Hong Kong shows don't match up with what they're saying, and most Cantonese songs sound really formal like Shakespeare or something. So you can pretty much throw out that advice for Cantonese, making it much harder to learn than other Category 4 languages. One of the main differences between standard Chinese and spoken Cantonese actually brings us to the next reason why Cantonese is so hard to learn, which is final particles. They're these short little words that you put at the end of sentences to give it a little flavor, a little bit of zing, and can completely change the meaning of what you're saying. A lot of times there's no way to translate it neatly, it's just really a matter of feeling. So for example, the following sentences all have a different meaning. 佢返咗屋企呀，佢返咗屋企啦。佢返咗屋企喎，佢返咗屋企啩，佢返咗屋企咩？佢返咗屋企㗎啦。What's so frustrating is that no matter how good your Cantonese is, if you don't get final particles right, your Cantonese is always just gonna sound a little off. So before we get to the last reason, like this video if you think Cantonese is the hardest language to learn, and if you don't think so, well, like it anyway. Alright, so the last reason Cantonese is so hard to learn is that there seems to be a lot of Cantoneses. People in Hong Kong speak differently from people in mainland China, and even within Hong Kong, people speak differently depending on their generation. Then there are people like me. Since I learned Cantonese from my parents who immigrated in the 80s, well, sometimes people say I kind of sound like a boomer. But what I'm really getting at is that pronunciation, vocabulary, and even grammar can vary a lot across regions and generations. This is one of the biggest reasons I think Cantonese is so hard to learn. There is a standard, but most people don't seem to talk that way. So whose Cantonese should we be learning from? I don't want to get into what is actually a huge debate on what is proper Cantonese pronunciation. If you want to know more, you can just Google lazy tone for Cantonese. Just a little warning, it gets a little heated. So do you think Cantonese is the hardest language to learn? I'd love to know what you guys think. Or maybe you guys think another language is even harder to learn than Cantonese? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks to my channel members and patrons for their support. You guys are the best. Thanks for helping me keep doing what I love to do. All right, 下次再見. Bye bye.